Hi, this is Christal Jordan, and welcome to another edition of Culture Conversations with Christal. I'm excited for you to be a part of today's conversation because we are talking about the importance of brotherhood on Black men's mental health. And who better to do that than one of my favorite casts from one of my favorite shows, Johnson. Now, Johnson airs on Bounce, and the thing that's special about this show is that it was created and written by a Black man for Black men, and the rest of us just get a chance to enjoy it. Have you ever, as a woman, watched Black men embrace each other? And you see the familiarity, the excitement that they see when they see another one of their own in their embrace? Well, that's something that I've always been jealous of. And tonight we're going to talk about the importance of brotherhood and how having another Black man to share, to hold accountable, and to be a part of your life as you grow and mature and make mistakes, how important that all is. So joining me is Thomas Jones, Deji LaRay, Derrex, Brady, and Philip A.J. Smithey. Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Thank you guys. Well, first of all, thank you guys for being here. We have the entire cast of Johnson, which is great, for this really important conversation. Of course, I'm going to start with you, Deji, because like I said, this show was written by a Black man, created by a Black man for Black men, and for the rest of us to be able to understand and take part of. And understanding that concept, what was it about a Black man writing a show that showed the inner workings of four very diverse Black men that caused you to feel like this was something you had to bring to the screen?
Well, I felt like it was my responsibility. You know, I was in a position in a time period where I wasn't seeing this narrative on television. I was seeing that the appetite was getting stronger and stronger with the audience, wanting to see a variety, see a more balanced approach to, you know, how we're portrayed on TV. Just paying attention to all that and just feeling like it was time, you know, seeing how well, you know, Black women were changing their own narrative and creating shows that, you know, they could be proud of, and shows that portrayed them the way that they wanted to be seen. And also just seeing the way that we were portrayed. You know, I travel a lot, and, you know, whenever I travel, I just see how much media affects our image, you know, everywhere that we go, you know, and it's very powerful. And I don't think people realize how powerful it is. And so how do we just create a little bit more of a balance? How do we, you know, because, you know, to keep it real, some of my favorite shows, you know, one of my favorite shows is The Wire. You know, of all time. Great show. But you got to be able to turn The Wire off and then turn on Johnson or a show like that to where you can see another side of Black men. And so I wrote the original pilot in 2014, and you know, it's evolved into something that at that time I knew it was necessary, but I wasn't quite sure that it was going to happen in this way. I think it only happened in this way because I was able to get 3 other like-minded Black men on board, you know, with Thomas Q. Jones, Derrex, Brady, and Philip Smithey. And, you know, because if it was just me, it wouldn't have happened, right? And that's a testament to, obviously, the film industry and creatively, but also in real life, you know, just a testament to how much we need each other, you know, and I think we, you know, a lot of times we move too much in sort of an individual mind state, you know, without understanding how strong, how much more we can accomplish together, collectively. So I am the creator of the show, but this show doesn't move without this guy. This show doesn't move without them. They are the show. We are the show collectively. And there's so many people behind the scenes who are instrumental in moving this show forward, you know, and so it's truly a team effort, and I'm just happy with where we're at now with season 4, currently airing on Bounce TV.
We could go ahead clap for that.
Let's go.
4th season, that's huge because we are in a space specifically when it comes to entertainment. First of all, it's difficult to get a show to be able to have any type of continuity because there's so many different places that the viewer has to watch, right? And a lot of times people enjoy watching things that are just easy to consume, right? So it's reality, it's somebody acting crazy, I can laugh at it, but to actually have something of substance that the audience has continued to grow, and we've been able to see these characters really transition and grow. It's just a beautiful thing. So congratulations to all 4 of you on that.
Thank you so much.
I want to next go to you, Thomas, because you're also an executive producer for the show, and a lot of us know you from being a professional football player and being able to successfully make this transition, one of the things that I love about your character, Omar, is that, you know, there's so many stereotypes that people have about black men from the way they look and the way, you know, just the physicality of it. But your character has really, especially over, you know, watching him from season 1 till now, we see Omar being vulnerable. We see Omar showing loss. We see him messing up. But we see him really taking accountability, you know, and growing. And I think we see that in all the characters, but there's been a lot of really extreme, you know, Omar's had a lot of extremes, you know, as far as his relationship with his estranged wife that may not quite be estranged right now, his relationship with his son, and his relationship with himself. We see this season starts with Omar in therapy. And it becomes something that he shares with the entire group. And in essence, I believe something that he's able to share with the viewers. So do you think that things are changing and that people are paying a lot more attention to black men, the fact that there has been such a strange stigma on black men acknowledging that they need help, and they need help from each other, and then also from just medical attention and just from a therapist?
Yes, I definitely think that the narrative is shifting. There's a lot of importance put on black men and black men's mental health. You know, everything starts with your mental health, no matter who you are. You know, if you're, you know, you're having issues, you know, psychologically and mentally, it's going to be like a domino effect and affect everything else in your life. So, you know, not just with social media, you see it a lot more in regards to black men's mental health, but, you know, you hear about it a lot in the press, you hear about it a lot in the media. Definitely on Johnson, you know, we highlight that, you know, especially with the Omar character. Omar is a stereotypical black man in some ways. He's deemed aggressive, he's deemed assertive, he's deemed you know, not faithful. You know, there's a lot of flaws that Omar has, like a lot of other men have. But because usually a character like Omar, there's no backstory given on why he's that way. He's just seen as just this innately bad person. And what I'm proud of on this show is that we dive into the backstory of these characters. We dive into their traumas, their past. How did he become this person? How did these flaws come about? And also, how does he overcome those flaws? What steps is he taking to overcome those flaws? And I think that's why a lot of people connect with the show, black men and black women, because the same goes for both of us. As black people, we've been traumatized for centuries. At this point, it's hereditary, you know? And, you know, unfortunately, our mental health has not been a premium. There's not been an emphasis put on protecting our mental health just as a collective, as black people. And so with the Omar character, I'm very proud that I'm able to have scenes where I'm acknowledging my flaws. I'm able to come clean with something that happened in his past that traumatized him that he hasn't gotten over. And I'm also extremely proud to show him taking the next steps, which is in season 4. First episode, he's in therapy. That's the first step. Acknowledging that there's an issue there, acknowledging that you need to fix it, and then taking the steps to actually get to the therapist and get it out of your system. So it's very, very important, our mental health as black people. But I definitely think this show is a step in the right direction for black men, acknowledging that mental health is an important situation that they need to stay on top of.
Absolutely, and that's why we're here, and that's why I'm such a big fan of this show, because it is, like you said, it's not just for black men, it's for them and written by them, but I think it really helps black women. Omar's character, I have to stay here because there was so much that happened leading up to this first episode with him in therapy. He was one of the biggest contention points of Omar's relationship with his wife was that he did not want to go to church. And that happens a lot, right? So a woman is trying to pull him in, he doesn't want to go. And you just think, oh, he's being trifling, he's being lazy. But there actually was something so painful there for him. And seeing him come into that realization, and then even as a viewer feeling like, oh man, I judged him wrong. You know, I remember feeling like, oh my God, when I started to see what was happening, I felt like, wow, how many times have I assumed because of a man's actions something and had no idea what was underneath that. So that was really powerful. And I just think watching that scene with Omar and his friends there in the church with him, supporting him as he did this, and they didn't know what was going to happen. It was really powerful, and I just want you to talk a little bit about that, because it happened in one scene. I was like, can we talk about that more? Can we go back and break that down, because that is a lot of men's stories. And I
Right.
can just say, as a journalist, and just a person that likes to talk to people, I've had 13 men, black men, tell me that they were molested. And I was the first person that they told, and they were various ages. It happened to them, from some people from men, some people from women, but finding a safe space. And so the fact that many of them had held this in until they were in their 30s, is just sad. So can you talk a little bit about how you felt reading that script and then going into that place? Because that had to be really emotional.
Yeah, no, it was. I mean, Deji as a writer is one of the best in the business. He's incredible at writing content that speaks to us as black men to speak our truth. And as an actor, I just get excited when I get the scripts and I'm reading my dialogue. It's like, wow, I get to say something that matters. I get to say something that hasn't been said. I get to say something that is going to encourage other people and empower other people, black men in particular, to speak their truth. The church is the cornerstone of the black community. It has been for as long as I can remember. And you have the religious aspect of it, and you have the spiritual aspect of it, and sometimes the two kind of get crossed. And a lot of times when it comes to black men, we feel like we have to be Superman, we have to be tough, we have to not cry, we have to not show our emotions, because that's us being seen as weak.
Yeah.
And in the black community, that typically is what it's seen. How it's seen. It's you're a black man, if you're vulnerable all the time, you need to toughen up. But then when you're not vulnerable, you need to be vulnerable. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it seems like sometimes you can't really win in that space. But a lot of times we're misunderstood because people don't take the time to try to figure out why are you like that. They just immediately make you the villain. And I think, me personally, I was able to add some of my personal experiences into that storyline with Omar, as coming from the NFL, a very violent game, having to be a specific type of person, very confident, almost cocky, very competitive, egotistical, all of the things that you would think about Omar or how I had to be successful in football. But off the field, that's not me. So Omar is definitely misunderstood, just like I was misunderstood and still am misunderstood a lot of times, which made it a lot easier for me to step into the Omar character and take a lot of those experiences that I've had in my past and really emotionally connect to the character and his plight.
Yeah, that's deep. It's like I could dive into all this, but we got to move on. I want to talk to Derrex, who plays Jarvis, and we talk about stereotypes, right? And what people assume. So we meet Jarvis. He's in an interracial relationship, and there are a lot of assumptions that people make about men in interracial relationships. And I'm wondering, just kind of piggybacking off what Deji said and even what Thomas said just now, like sometimes there's a stereotype, and then I wonder if sometimes we start to buy into the stereotypes because that's all we see. So if there is a man in an interracial relationship and there's all these assumptions about him not caring about his culture and not caring about his community, and he's constantly, seeing that that's the only thing people respond to, that's what people assume, do you think it could be difficult for him to stay in the place where he realizes who he really is in that situation? Do you think that we often start to buy into the stereotypes we've been taught and we've been constantly bombarded with about ourselves?
Well, I feel like for Jarvis, for him, it was really him going to Yale and being a fish out of water and trying to adapt. And I think the way he fell in love with his wife was there was someone that actually heard his voice.
Yeah.
And I think from there they connected. I don't think he ever in his head thought he forgot about his community. I think that he kind of just got in touch with the success that he had.
Yeah.
And his circle changing and the environment changing. And so I think that can happen to some people sometimes. They get to a certain place or a little affluent or a lot of success, and they're not dealing with the same struggles that sometimes people in the community deal with, and so they just kind of lose touch.
Yeah.
Jarvis, to his credit, he thinks if he gets pulled over, he's just gonna say hello and explain himself and articulate himself and be able to leave.
He learned.
The idea of him having to show his license when he's not driving is absurd. I mean, he just had dinner with the mayor. It's like, what?
Yeah.
So I think for him, I think he just kind of lost touch.
Yeah.
And that was a reality for him.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, in season 1, in episode 10, when he had the whole experience with the police brutality, I think that was the first time really that he kind of saw that, wait a minute,
Yeah.
my wife and I are not from the same world, and when I even try to express my world, she's not even understanding it.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the crack started happening. So I think for that, I think people can get a reality check.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am still a black man. We're going to take a break. We're going to take a break, and we're going to come back with Philip Smithey, whose character had probably the most changes in season 4, and talk to him about how does it feel to be heading to the Bahamas with a potential fiance. Stay tuned. This is Culture Conversations with Christal, and we'll be right back. All right, this is your host, Christal Jordan, and I'm back, and I have to correct myself. I actually am getting ready to talk with the very important, the amazing Philip A.J. Smithey. And he has so many names, and I got one of them wrong. But I remember, I looked at the card, and I was like, I can just leave out the AJ. But no, Philip Arthur Jordan Smithy. Is it the third?
The fifth.
The
The
fifth.
fifth.
My God, just the legacy is all just,
Yeah.
amazing, amazing.
I almost want to like bow after you said
I
it
feel
out
like
loud,
I
but-
should bow or curtsy after being in. I think you put "sir" on the front. And
Yes.
yeah. Seriously, it should probably have "sir" on the
Yes.
front. No, but that's
First
I mean,
of his name.
and I mean, like unforgettable, because every time I look at your name, I see it's like Philip and then AJ. That's got to be really important because it's in there. So
Yeah, thank
it is
you.
important. Your
He
character.
told the last interviewer to call him Phil, so I don't know what's going on.
I don't know.
What was that?
I was just trying to be relatable. I don't want to be the guy. I'm like, hey, call me Philip Arthur Jordan Smithy the Fifth. There it is.
Yes, but speaking of relatable, Keith's character is very different than some of the characters that we've seen black men portray, just because he's very honest, right? He doesn't seem to be hiding behind the ego or the trying to look cool that some guys are, and it's actually refreshing to see that and to see the way he interacts with his friends, and they accept that. And I think there are a lot of, I know my son and a lot of other black boys specifically that don't see themselves represented, and they see like they have to fit behind a different stereotype. This season, we see Keith's relationship with his mom, which, is also a bit stereotypical. His mom is still very involved in his life.
Yeah.
But we also see him, proposing and falling in love and kind of growing up in a way. Let's talk about, Keith's growth, because we've seen him be very creative and kind of be that artist that, kind of marches to the beat of his own drum. But this season, we see him really stepping into his own and finding, who he is as a man.
Yeah.
Where do you see this going for Keith?
It's really fun to get to portray someone who's had such a, great arc as far as like, you see him in the beginning and he's got such a naivete and he's, so I guess unconfident in himself and where he sits socially, where he sits with dating. And so that's why he's latching onto just this idea of what, falling in love or being attracted to someone could be. And now he's made it to this point where he's found someone who really has shown him his own potential, and it's allowing him to step into a new, I guess, era of what being an adult, being a man is. And it's because of the relationship that he has with these guys. It's because of the relationship that he has with Jackie that he's gaining the confidence to start seeing himself as a man. And when you can see yourself that way, when you can have the confidence and know, like, my voice matters, my voice is heard, then you start looking at the world around you and thinking, how can I make an impact, because what I have to say means something. And that's when we see him starting to look outward toward his community to see, what changes can I make to better this place that I care about. And but it all stems from the love that he is feeling from the people around him, that is now turning and is the alchemy into the love he's now having for himself.
I like that. And I think what you said was really important about how a man has to see himself that way before he can start to move that way. So we got a chance to know a little bit more about Keith's background. So we see his mom. He and his mom have been kind of like, a team, and now his mother is dating. He's not really excited about that.
Right.
And so a lot of that, comfort is being stripped away from him. And then he meets Jackie, and this relationship doesn't have like the normal romantic beginning that a lot of TV romances do. No. Can you talk a little bit about how, which I think made it feel authentic? Not everything, is like, you see someone across the bar. Obviously, Bianca.
Right.
The way he felt about Bianca is not
right.
what he feels about Jackie. So can you talk about the difference in how he started to realize, wait a minute, and then see, find her beauty even when she didn't necessarily see her beauty, and then have to understand that. So it's a very different type of romance than what we usually see on television.
It is, because in the first instance, it's because he's insecure that he's latching so quickly onto the idea of what this relationship could be. But now, the difference is, it's because he's finding that security, that he's more confident in the decision of who this person is to him, and what that love actually is. And Keith is someone who's very much, he's very loyal. His relationship with his mom he's like, it was just been us this whole time, and he has his guys, and now he's found this person who really like completes the idea of what he wants to be for his life. And there's no half measures with Keith, because like you said, he doesn't really have a filter. He doesn't feel there's like a need to. He speaks what's on his mind. He has his kind of free flowing spirit, and if he knows he's in love and he's happy, he's like, that's it. Like, I'm here. And so it's really refreshing to see that, because I feel like I can be inspired by that. I think a lot of us, especially as we grow older, just start second guessing ourselves more and more, because we get all these external variables that make us question ourselves, and it gets harder and harder to just trust your instincts and to trust in what is right or feels good or is best for you. And Keith is someone that that is able to do that. It's a great quality.
I think the naivety is what makes his character so lovable, because you appreciate the fact that he doesn't really have some of the the added additives that other people have. So it feels very genuine, even when he's with his art, with his photography. He feels like, well, I think this is beautiful. He had no idea why Jackie was not excited to see the pictures, and you could feel that it really wasn't, he wasn't being facetious. He just really didn't understand. Do you feel like Keith is growing? I feel like there wasn't necessarily a lot of male figures around him. His mother, it was just he and his mother. It feels like the guys kind of are that. You guys kind of help each other grow up. That's what it feels like. Would you all say that? I mean, everyone could jump in. It feels like in so many instances you see these guys help each other. Obviously, Greg needed some help. A little guidance, and Derrex, your character is very good. Jarvis is very good about holding Greg accountable. Like, you cannot stay here and keep doing this. Like, it seems like you guys are each other's accountability, and sometimes act as a brother, sometimes even act as a mentor or father, and then sometimes just a friend or a listening ear. So it's interesting to see that growth doesn't necessarily have to be an older person. Sometimes it could be your peers.
There's mentorship happening throughout the series with each of us in different instances. I think one of the coolest things to perform for me was one of the great lessons that Keith got to learn from someone who he felt had really hurt him, when Omar confronted him in his place and is like, hey, you see yourself as this way, but that's just not true. Like, you have to understand, you have to step into like what's real, and that you have this appeal. You should have that confidence. And that's a lesson that Keith hadn't learned, because he had his own inner, insecurity, things that he was dealing with, and it was Omar that taught him that. And then in other instances, like, he learns certain levels of responsibility from Greg, from Jarvis, like.
From Greg.
Well,
don't
I was
know.
gonna say like,
I was like,
Responsibility.
you know, but there's another lesson, and there's another, because one thing that I also learned, and this is something that every family deals with, sometimes you learn a lot just from watching
what not to do.
what not to do.
Oh, okay.
So like, so even in how, and that's another part of how we all influence each other, is because we're learning lessons from each other constantly, whether we're intentionally teaching those lessons or whether we're like just picking them up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Age doesn't determine growth. Experiences do.
Right.
And what I love about this show is that each of these guys are learning from each other's experiences. Whether one of the guys is giving them advice based off of their experience, or one of the guys is watching the other guy's experience.
Yeah.
And that's how it should be. You know, that's how brotherhood, sisterhood, friendship should be, when you truly love the person, you care about the person, you want them to be the best version of themselves.
Yeah.
And you can be equally yoked as friends as well.
That's good.
You know what I'm saying? And I think these four guys are very, very equally yoked because they have history. They've known each other since they were kids.
Yeah.
And they're continuing to evolve and change, and also accepting each other for who they are. And I think that's what these guys do. They accept each other for who they are.
Yeah.
It's, you know, how can we continue to elevate each other at the same and grow at the same pace? Or if we're not going at the same pace, how can we all pause and wait for the other one to catch up?
That's huge.
I think that's pretty powerful.
And that's what we see you all doing in different situations. Like
Right.
the job, career, it may be Greg. In other situations, it may be Jarvis. Like you see, the maturity doesn't just happen in one dimension. It's multidimensional, which is great. I want to go back to that scene because that was really impactful with Keith and Omar, because the characters that you would probably think, it would very seldom do you see the character that everybody thinks is going to be a ladies' man point out the attractiveness and this is the edge that you have. And that, I mean, that was big because that's, you know, not usually, you know, when you have characters, this is what you do and you stay in that box. But being able to have that conversation and for Omar to actually be able to realize that was huge. And I don't know if we always see that. How did you feel like that was something that was realistic, or is this something that's aspirational?
No, it's very, very realistic. It's very realistic because a lot of times guys like Omar get the surface attention, the surface love. But when you know, break the person down and, you know, the need versus maybe the want, it's Keith is who she needs. She needs a vulnerable man who's confident in who he is, regardless of how he may be perceived. Someone that is going to be genuinely honest. Is you know, not saying that Omar isn't a good guy, because he is a good guy, but sometimes guys like Omar have higher expectations because things come to them a little easier. You know what I'm saying? Someone like Keith, you know, he's just kind of the poster child for what not just a good man is, but I guess the man that is going to provide a woman real stability, and that's emotional stability.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? And so I think it
He
definitely
keeps
came
giving
from.
you the same compliment even more today. You give me more.
It's real. It comes from a real place.
That's dope.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, look at his character. His character proposed in a laundromat. You know, I mean, take away all the extras and the bells and whistles, and I mean, I know for a lot of people that wouldn't suffice, and there's probably a large demographic of people who wouldn't be happy with that type of proposal, but it was real. It was from the heart. His spontaneity is just on point. And you know, quite honestly, a lot of the audience say that Keith's character is their favorite. You know what I mean? Like we went down to Essence and it was all over this guy. You know, it was all over this guy. And it's because if you get rid of all of the noise and you get rid of all of what social media says and you know what this person did for this person, or where this person proposed, or the size of the ring from this person, and you just focus in on what's truly important, it's what he's providing. He proposed, he didn't even have a ring.
Yeah, he
you
did
know,
not.
in that scene. And so I think people understand that. Most
Yeah.
people understand that. Some
People that want something real.
Yeah,
Right.
of
Yeah.
course. People who don't. But the people who are genuine and are genuinely looking for that, they will gravitate towards somebody like Keith for sure.
Absolutely. Deji, how important was it to have a situation happen where a woman came between guy friends? We hear that that's a big thing that happens a lot. How important, because we saw that play out and did not play out quite well in
Yeah.
Omar's favor. But that seems to happen a lot with men. So why was that important to put in this series, and even the fallout of how people can see, oh, he really made the wrong choice. Look what happened to him after he made that wrong choice.
Yeah, I think it's important because it's real. And one thing we wanted to do on this show is not shy away from, you know, topics that, you know, we experience, we go through, we see. And, you know, I think with any sort of male friend group, there's going to be some sort of situation like that. Now, whether somebody takes it to that extreme or whether it's just maybe a comment or something like that, there's different versions of what that looks like.
Yeah.
But it was important to show it because there's a lot of different ways that can be handled too. You know, I think for a lot of people that would be the end of their friendship. You know, if
Absolutely.
something like that happened. And you know, and maybe it would have been, you know, if it was somebody else who was more important to this to Keith. The fact that what Keith was after in that moment or what he was lusting after was more surface, I think is the reason why they were able to mend their friendship. And also to showing basically the backstory of why Omar did what he did as opposed to just
Yeah.
doing it, right? And, you know, emotional intelligence on both ends, and they were able to get past it. It wasn't easy, but I think, you know, it just proves that regardless of the situation, if there's genuine love there between the guys or the ladies, then you can pretty much get past anything. But of course, that is a strict no-no in any friend
That is
group.
culture.
And also Greg and Jarvis fighting for them as well.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. That also
know,
helped.
yeah.
Because it took because I don't think Keith was trying to.
No, you know, but it goes to show how important the friend group is and how much these guys love us and how important our unity is.
Yeah.
It's because, you know, if one of us is hurting, all of us are hurting.
Right.
And also accountability, and making Omar accountable. And then Omar accepting that he was wrong.
Yeah.
Regardless of how he ended up in the situation. He didn't ask to DM her. Everything happened.
Yeah.
Keith approved it. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, and then it morphed into something that he needed at the time, which was, you know, someone that actually, even if it was only for that night, someone that actually felt was listening and cared because he wasn't getting it from Naomi. But, you know, he was able to mend the friendship because there was love there, and the ultimate friend group is when everyone's making each other accountable.
Yeah.
I think that's what makes our brotherhood special is the love, right? Because it's like the love for them is that when one of them has success or wins, no one's jealous or envious. Envy of it. They're excited about it. And it's that same love that holds us accountable, you know? And even if that's not with aggression, it's just telling the truth, keeping it 100.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why our foundation is always able to stay steady no matter how rocky it gets.
That makes sense. When we come back, we've enjoyed listening to the guys talk about their characters. I want to talk to them about just being a black man in America and how these characters, what would they like to see more of from these characters in what they deal with in everyday life. Stay right there. This is Culture Conversations with Christal here on Lennox and Parker. We'll be right back. And we're back. This is Culture Conversations with Christal, and I have the pleasure of sitting down and having a conversation with the 4 stars of Johnson. Johnson airs on Bounce, and if you have not been watching it, you need to make sure that you go to the Brown Sugar app or find your local listing for Bounce and check out the entire series. We are in season 4, so you better catch up if you haven't seen it yet. Make sure that you catch up. But we're talking with the guys about the importance of brotherhood. And this series, like I said earlier, kind of feels aspirational, right? It would be great if men had these type of relationships, people that would hold them accountable, love them unconditionally, and be there from elementary school because their last name was all the same, right?
Yeah, right.
But that's not true in a lot of cases, and we know that there's a lot of negativity that happens to young people that puts them on the wrong path, specifically if they don't have these type of bonds. We actually know a school shooting just happened recently, so kids are dealing with a lot of things that are very, very different than we want them to be able to, be exposed to. So I want to start with Thomas and ask you, out of the characters that you all play, which character do you think would have been the friend you needed the most growing up, if you could choose, when you were like the elementary version of Thomas?
I think, man, that's a tough question. Because all of these characters, I feel like I had some version of them in reality. But I guess I would have to say maybe Jarvis's character. Jarvis, was, he grew up a lot different than I grew up. He kind of comes from, he wasn't necessarily rich, but he had a lot more than.
He was okay, differently than a lot of us.
Yes,
Yeah.
but he had access to more than what I had.
Yeah.
And to be able to see that perspective as a kid, and not just be ambitious to be successful, but actually see success.
Yeah.
What that looks like in
Yeah.
front of you, I think is a different perspective, and it takes you on a different journey. Even if you have the same goal in mind, it offers maybe a more real perspective on you being able to get there, and when you see it in one of your friends.
Yeah.
I didn't really have that example growing up, so everything for me was imagination
Yep.
and TV and radio and however else I could get that information, especially coming from where I'm from in Virginia. But having someone like Jarvis, where you see it in front of you, I think it just makes it more real,
Yeah.
right? And I'm not saying it would have made my journey any easier, but I definitely think that it would have given me a different perspective,
Yeah.
as I continue to grow and make it to where I ended up eventually anyway.
Yeah. It's different being the first one to
Totally
get there
different.
than being like, okay, this is normal. Like
Yeah, totally
I can do it because I see it, as opposed to I just think I can, and oh shit, what do I do now that I
Yeah,
can?
I did it. Wow,
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
totally different,
Yeah.
And I mean, I wouldn't have it any other way at this point,
Yeah.
because of everything that I learned and I'm able to pass down to people. But, what they say, work smarter, not harder.
It explains
So-
why this type of thing is important, and if we can give this to the next generation, then we definitely should try. What about you, Deji? Which friend do you think would have benefited you the most?
I would have to say Keith. Keith is he's the type, growing up, I was in honors classes, but at the same time, it wasn't cool to be smart.
Yeah.
It wasn't cool to make straight A's. So instead of making straight A's, I got to get a few B's on purpose,
Yeah.
or a C on purpose.
Yeah.
Or I got to skip school, with some friends, just so I wasn't all the way on that side. And
Yeah.
I think having a friend like Keith would have made me realize that you can be smart, you can be honest, you can be yourself and be all of these things and still be cool. You don't have to try to chase what everybody else is doing. I wasn't very impressionable. I didn't really chase anybody, but we got to keep it real. We are influenced
Yeah.
by people, especially at that age, and I'm sure I was influenced, whether I knew it or not
Yeah.
at times, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think Keith would have given me a nice balance
Yeah.
of, just keeping it real with myself, and let me know that myself was enough
Yeah.
growing up, yeah.
And get all those A's.
Yeah.
What about you, Derrex?
For me, interesting, when I was younger, Greg. I grew up in an environment, keeping up with the Joneses.
Yeah.
I grew up with access, and in that, you grow up being known by everybody but loved by nobody because everybody's superficial and it's all image based. And Greg keeps it like he'll just tell you right in front of everybody everything. He'll just be honest. It's just what it is, you know.
Yes.
And he'll hold you accountable bluntly.
Yeah, yeah.
And I could have used that when I was younger, you know, knowing that I didn't have to, you know, be this person that looks like their life is in a picture frame.
Yeah.
And everything is just perfect. And
Yeah.
you never make any mistakes. And
Yeah.
you do everything right. And you can't never do anything wrong.
Yeah.
Greg just kind of lives life.
Yeah, he's not afraid.
His rhythm is his own beat.
Yeah.
When I get there, I get there. I'm doing it this way, I'm doing that.
Yeah.
You should have said this.
Yeah.
Remember when you did that? You probably should call that person. And I think I could have used that
Yeah.
and just building my confidence and knowing that I could just be authentic of
Yeah.
who I am,
Yeah.
and that's okay.
Nice.
Hey, man, appreciate you, man. I was waiting for one of y'all to say
It was the character though. No.
hoping.
I was trying to figure out how that would, but that makes perfect sense because
Yeah.
Greg is the one that's always just gonna be honest.
I had
and
too many
just like-
Gregs. Sorry. I'm tired of Greg. I need a Jarvis.
Jarvis got money. Yeah, that would have helped.
And his hood is full of Gregs. All being honest. What about you, Keith?
Man,
Or
I
Philip.
would have taken any of these guys growing up. My situation growing up, I felt I was very isolated. I've been a little dorky theater nerd, you know, only black kid in class since I was 5 years old. And I never I always felt othered. I never felt like I fit in. But I would have to say, if there was one person that could have been by my side during that time that would have inspired me and made me feel like confident, it definitely would have been Omar. Because it's like he just is. He's strong, he's confident, but he knows how to be vulnerable, he knows
Yeah.
how to be himself. And I would have looked at that example and been like, if he's bad, I'm bad too. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if he's cool, I'm cool too. Like, I can, you know, I would lean on his strength
Yeah.
to like endure everything else that was happening. It would have been really fun.
That is so cool. This
Look,
has been
each
a
character
cool
was.
moment.
I
love
know.
it.
Like each character.
Wild.
Man.
That is so cool. So it sounds like, let me ask you this before I ask you about just what we see right now, like what's happening in our culture. What has Keith taught you about Philip?
Keith has taught me that Philip should just like accept who he is. Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's like I said, I've always been kind of like a little random, a little like quirky, and I only discovered that it was actually like a desirable trait when I went to college, and it was like my first time around. It was my first time around people of color, like
Okay.
for longer than just like my cousins at
Yeah.
the reunion. And then I went to college, and then I was like, oh, they thought I was funny just because I talked weird, and because I dressed weird. And they didn't. They were like, you're funny, but like, you can stay over there. But like, it was this weird thing, that confidence that comes with just like, I guess also adulthood.
Yeah.
You know, when you're like, all right, I get it. Like, this is me. I'm just sort of, you know, myself. But then coming into this group of people and realizing like, not only is it okay, but like, they want it. They
Yeah.
want you to just be you.
Yeah.
And Keith has that. Keith is just like, he's quirky, and he says the weird stuff, and they always tell him to shut up, but they never tell him to leave.
That's true.
Like,
And he doesn't seem to
they're
care.
still
that they
happy
say
he's
shut
there.
up.
You know.
So like,
doesn't
there's
seem to care.
there's that like, oh my gosh, like my place, my people. There's
Yeah.
that thing
Yeah.
that Keith has, and it's because of them that he's allowed to be so like free. Because if
Yeah.
he didn't have them,
Yeah.
I'm sure he would have had to adapt some other way and put up more shields and been more like, let me just try to fit in some other way because I don't have anyone who has my back.
Yeah.
These guys have his back, so it's
Yeah.
your fault that Keith's a weirdo.
Man, okay. What do you think? What has Jarvis taught you about Derrex?
I think Jarvis has taught me, going from season 1 to 4, I think he's taught me that I have value and that I'm enough. Why you ask me that question now? Get me a little emotional.
I almost did too. Go ahead.
think, you know, season 1, Jarvis plays it so safe. And I think he learns that he has value, and it's okay. It's okay to shift. It's okay to change. It's okay to grow. And I love how Jarvis continues to grow and evolve. And that's like in my own life,
Yeah.
learning that I don't have to play so safe, and that if I make a mistake, it's okay.
It's okay. Yeah.
And also the brotherhood, right? Because having these guys in my life has filled a void that I didn't have. And so, yeah.
Yeah.
Why you messing
man.
with me?
Oh, man.
Don't look at me.
I don't know where that came from, but yeah.
Nah.
Look
Look,
what
there's a
you-
lot of. It comes from because these characters, a lot of parallels.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
A lot of parallels that are spoken, a lot of parallels that we know, that aren't really spoken. And the writing sometimes touches these guys. You know what I mean? You turn in a script and they read it and it's like, oh my God, like how did you know
Yeah.
that I actually went through this, or that this is this similar to my life?
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's just that a lot of people go through this.
Yeah.
And that's the beautiful thing about this show, is that somebody who goes through some of these experiences, they feel seen, because we're putting things on the screen that only they know about their lives.
Right.
You know what I mean? And
Right.
so that's why we get the emotional connection to this show. And I say that all the time. You know, you can watch a show and just watch it and be entertained. But this show, you can watch it and be entertained, but also care
Yep.
about these characters as if they were your own brothers. You know what I mean? People really can't wait to see this guy get married. People can't wait to see Greg get a job. People can't wait. Like
I
it's they
want
own,
Omar to get back with Naomi. I want
Yeah.
it to happen.
like it's their own family member.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's that emotional connection, because it's so relatable. So my man, you know, I feel you.
Yeah, you still got to answer the question.
Yeah, no. My answer is short and sweet. You know, I think, you know, Greg has taught me that it is, you know, that everybody moves at their own pace.
Yeah.
You know, and you just got to accept everybody for where they're at. You know, everybody is different. Everybody has different motivations. Some people are motivated, highly motivated, and some people aren't motivated because they haven't had anything to motivate them.
Yeah.
You know, I'm fortunate. You know, I had parents that put me in the arts, you know, when I was a kid, and they put me in plays, and I was able to travel to New York and travel to California and all this when I was real young, and get exposed to the arts and see what I wanted to do and become passionate about that. But then there's other people who never got that.
Yeah.
You know, other people who don't have those opportunities strictly because of maybe where their environment, or who their parents are, or lack of their parents, or lack of the brotherhood, or whatever, just circumstance.
Yeah.
Everybody's different, and I think Greg is starting to find his passion. But you know, seasons 1 through 3, you know, he's just doing odd jobs, but he still was a part of this group the same way he was a part of it, and still went to bat for these guys. And within this brotherhood, you know, that was enough. You
Yeah.
know, but now that he's passionate about it, I'm very proud of him. And it's funny because we were saying off camera, you were saying being the creator, but writing a character for myself that was like this, right?
Yeah.
Because I could have easily
Yeah, that's what a lot of people, I mean, a lot of writers, you know, will paint themselves into that heroic,
Yeah.
you know, savior of everyone. And
Yeah.
so it was interesting because I remember when I interviewed you the first time, and he's the creator. I was like, am I sure? Because Greg is not really Greg is not.
Yeah.
But I just thought, I was like, wow, so that proved to me that as a creative, you care more about the creativeness and the authenticity than you did about your own ego. And as a writer, that's huge. So I
Thank you.
salute you for that. It
Thank
takes a
you. It's
lot.
true. It's just really just representing for the demographic of people that are like Greg. And then same thing with Omar, Jarvis, and Keith.
Yeah.
That's important. Just to cover as many
Yeah.
black men
Just
as
what
possible.
feels authentic.
Yeah.
And you are definitely, you all are in characters that it feels like it's hard, like preparing to interview, because I really want to call you the character's name because it feels so like, you know, you feel like you connect with the character.
Yeah.
You feel like I'm
Right.
talking to Jarvis right now, but it's like really, And that says that you're in everybody's in the right role, you know, and this is really like, I think, you know, divine order.
Yeah.
2014, you know, Deji should be proud.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
10 years ago.
Yeah. All right, Thomas, what has Omar taught you about Thomas?
Man, I feel you, Derrex.
Yeah.
You know, on the emotional side, because this is just a special show, and you know, I'm a very private person and very low key person, and you know, I've been that way my entire life. I've been that way through my whole NFL career now as an actor, and I never thought coming into this business, especially with the idea of Hollywood, the idea of what comes with Hollywood, you know, being in the public eye, which I've been for a long, long time, I never thought that I would meet guys in this industry that I would call my brothers. Like I called my teammates my brothers, because we went through a very specific daily routine. The pressures, the stakes were super high with all of us. You could either win the game and be a hero, or you could lose the game and get paralyzed. That was my reality every day, you know, so the stakes are very high at all times. And, you know, I think Derreck's emotions and these guys' emotions come from how I feel, which is this show is 4 seasons in. I've grown as a man in this character, you know. You don't get a chance to do that in this business as a black man. Usually there's no backstory given to our characters, or we're just bad people. We want to rob, we want to shoot, we're misogynistic, all of the bad things.
Or oversex, like.
Yeah, it's black men. So to be able to meet these guys and set out on a mission to create something that's going to inspire people to tell their truth and to give black men, the positive black men, because everybody, I mean, obviously there are black men who aren't doing the right things.
Yeah.
But there are more black men who are. And I think most people know more black men who are doing the right things than doing the wrong things. But the men who are doing the wrong things get all the publicity, they get all the shine. And it dims a light on us as black men and how powerful we are, and how inspirational we are, and how necessary we are.
Yeah.
And so to grow in these 4 seasons as a man, as an actor, as a producer, I mean, these guys have been a huge part of my evolution from the NFL. And I just want to say this, I love you all. I'm grateful, extremely grateful for you all. You mean so much to
Love you
me,
too, bro.
and being on set, being off set,
Yeah.
this whole experience for me has been something I did not see.
Yeah.
And in regards to Omar, having to be vulnerable. You can't be vulnerable in football. You get beat every time. And you're taught that from age 8 all the way up until 33 when I retired. Don't be vulnerable. Don't show weakness. Don't be vulnerable. Don't show weakness. And that transitions into your real life.
Yeah.
And with these guys, I have no choice but to be vulnerable, because they're vulnerable and they make it okay for me to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Deji's written scenes where Thomas might not have felt that way, but Omar does.
Yeah.
So where does Thomas have to go to feel that way, to portray that? He has to go to places that he doesn't want to be vulnerable, that he doesn't want to think about, that he pushes to the side.
Yeah.
So he's forced me as an actor
grow.
to be vulnerable. So becoming more vulnerable and understanding that it is okay. You're still a man if you're vulnerable. I think that's what playing this character has really allowed me to do, and taught me that is okay.
Thomas, I have to ask you one last question, because what you said was, I just can't let that go, because I think a lot of black men, football is seen as like the most masculine thing a boy can do, right? You know, dad has a son, it's like, I want to play football, you know. That's like the gladiator, it's the talented 10th, the most strongest, the biggest, the most talented.
Right.
So I think a lot of black men, they aim for that idea of masculinity, right? That's what they define as masculinity. So when you said that, don't be vulnerable, don't be weak, or you'll lose every time. I think a lot of black men feel like that even when they're not on the football field, right? Because when they go outside of their house, we were just talking about, the police are there if you're vulnerable. You know, if a woman hurt, like that I've got to keep this shell to be tough, because that's how I show a masculinity. Do you think that you've learned a way that, first of all, that idea, what they call toxic masculinity, is not true? And how do we start to like reteach young boys? But how do you win and still stay? Because we don't want them not to win, but we want you to be able to win and still be able to be human and be able to be vulnerable. What's that balance?
Man, that's the $1 million question. I think because the narrative around black men is that we can't be vulnerable. We can't be human. Vulnerability is humanity.
Yeah.
It's humanity. Everyone's vulnerable. Everyone has insecurities. But it just feels like when black men show vulnerability, the consequences are higher. And so we're scared as a whole to show that vulnerability because that weakness could get you killed in the streets, potentially get you ridiculed in public. A lot of consequences come with vulnerability in black men. So I think it's just going to take more and more people to see the value in creating content and representation in the media to show black boys that it is okay. The majority of the media that black boys see, they don't see us being vulnerable. So why would they be vulnerable? Most of the content that they hear regarding black men is, if you're vulnerable, you're weak.
Yeah.
Whether that's in the music, whether it's on TV, whatever it may be. So media plays a huge part in how we see ourselves and how people see us in general. And it's going to take more people to see the value in black positive male representation like Deji did to create this show, to hopefully continue to push this narrative until eventually there's more of this on TV and more of this across the airwaves, which translates into households, to parents, that trickles down to black boys.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, I want to thank you guys again. I'm so happy that we were able to do this because, you know, Lennox and Parker, we celebrate black excellence. And this is black excellence in real time, right?
Yeah.
This is how we change the narrative, by showing up, by sharing, by helping each other grow. And as a black woman, I can say just the example that all four of you said is so inspiring. And I just want to do everything that we can to share this so that we can encourage other black men to see it, but also other women, you know, women to see it and understand men a little bit more. You know, watching this show, I've understood the psyche of a black man a little bit more. I have a little more to go. A bit more to go. But if we can understand each other, if we can learn to love each other and accept each other and see that, you know, there's no such thing, we're no such thing as a monolith on either side, right? And so I just want to, like I said, thank you guys for the example that you're setting. Thank you, Deji, for writing this, you know, for having the courage and the tenacity to stick with it, because look how what you've done has blossomed just in the men that you know are writing for, and then the ones of us that are, you know, blessed enough to receive it. So I thank you for your time tonight, but most importantly, I thank you for what you all continue to do.
And we thank you.
We thank
we
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
You
Thank
since day one, you have been a supporter of the show. You saw the
Yeah.
value in the show. And here we are in season 4, and we're sitting
Yeah.
down with you again.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we just appreciate the support. And we say this all the time, you know, the journalists, people like yourself. The audience has a responsibility. You know, we talk about, we want to see something different.
Yeah.
You know, here we have it. The audience has to consume it.
Yep.
But then we have a responsibility as creators and producers to create this content. And the journalists have a responsibility to get the word out there. And that's what you're doing, and we
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah,
Since
to
day
support
one.
stuff that actually
Wholeheartedly
makes us.
appreciate
I'm supporting a show that I would want my son to see, that I would want my, you know, to give my nephew and say watch it, or my daughter to say watch it. So we are excited about that. And you can check out this amazing cover shoot. We've had this really, you know, vulnerable conversation now, but we're about to get into an amazing cover shoot. You can see more from this cover shoot conversation and the amazing pictures and behind the scenes, all on lennoxandparker.com. Thank you all for joining us tonight. We appreciate your time, and we'll see you next time on Culture Conversations with Christal.
Thank you.
Hey.
Crystal. My man.
Cool, man.
Love you.
Yeah, bro.